Hey guys, Matt. Just a minute or less before the reading of chapter 56, which is a continuation of the last chapter. I had to stop and then we get into some new things. Going to try to put out a special video for Thursday morning. I think this Thursday is July 4th. Pretty sure. And so it'll be like a special for July 4th. I've been thinking about something for a long time, and then I was speaking to Greg yesterday, and he put a twist on it. Like I was like, whoa, you know, did you just hit the nail on the head there? So I'm going to try to put it all together. And, you know, some people will disagree, but I wonder how close to the mark this will be. I'm not going to give anything away as to what it will be, and it will not be a book chapter. That'll be Thursday. Okay, continuing. The creatures have a multi-generational degree of patience in their not-so-great work. In their attitude and in their calm countenance, they act like they have supreme confidence that they'll actually see the finished products themselves, no matter how long it takes, past their lifetimes. It's hard to really put this into words, but you know what I'm talking about. The only way for them to see the finished product of much of what they begin or start is they would have to do it from another body or another incarnation of some kind. There's really no other way to explain it. Because a great degree of this work, a large degree, I don't like to use the word great around whatever sick work that think they're working on, but whatever it is, a lot of it takes more than one lifetime. You know, whether we talk about the building of these great cathedrals to what they knew was going to happen on 9/11, the day they broke ground on 9/11. We'll get into that. But it's almost like these dark ones know they'll be recycled back here, and it's possible they retain some or all knowledge of past lives, where everything you and I know of this world, if we're recycled back here, is of course wiped clean. It's two different things going on here. That's what it seems like when you observe the creatures. That's what they act like. That's what a Zygmunt Brzezinski creature seems to act like, doesn't it? The patience is inhuman. Now, I don't know exactly what that creepy movie Vanilla Sky was all about, but I bet there's a truth drop in a creepy movie like that somewhere. I watched it once and I don't really have the stomach to go back and watch it again, but there's something in there. I found there are these, quote, we call truth drops in many more movies and forms of media than I ever thought, once you can really see it or read the Matrix code. They're all over the place at this point. Now, again, if anybody wants to comment on Vanilla Sky, that will be interesting. But I don't. That movie's so bizarre. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. Those who believe in this could be a recycling system tell us that memory is erased upon birth. Many, like Dolores Cannon, who work with people in past life regression, will say there are techniques to access people's past lives. The subjects must be hypnotized and can't remember the details of their past lives while they're fully conscious, but do come up with some remarkable things while they're in this hypnotic state. Now, Dolores Cannon is dead, but hundreds of people, if not more, have now been trained in her methods and practice today. Now, a few people will be triggered. I'm not bowing down to Dolores Cannon, and I'm a proponent of everything she ever said. She put some very strange stuff out, but I listen. You know, I take bits and pieces of information from many sources I don't fully trust. Even the most untrusted entities, like the books of Zygmunt Brzezinski, read those creepy books. It reveals tons of truth if you can find the nuggets and look past the lies and the manipulation. Many people in their lives have rooted through dog shit. Many people have done this, looking for a diamond ring because the dog ate it. I have a family member that did it, but it wasn't a diamond. It was a different type of gem. So in our practice, we should do the same. Root through their dog shit. We shouldn't avoid Alex Jones, even at this point, if you can stomach him. Instead, study him to see what role that chubby Pied Piper wants to lead us down. I think I said hole here, or to see what role he's playing and to see what hole he wants us to lead us down. You know, did you hear George H.W. Bush's speech on 9/11, 1990? 9/11, 1990. Exactly 11 years before. It was about the creepy 1,000 points of light and the New World Order. Exactly 11 years before 9/11, 2001. Now, you think that was a coincidence? Everybody listening to this would say 100%, of course it was not. So all of these jerks are worth listening to if you're on the right level to do it without being influenced, manipulated, and mind-controlled, kind of like when Jabba the Hutt laughed at Luke in Return of the Jedi. Jabba, you will bring me a hand in the Wookiee now. Ha 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 ha, Jedi, puny Jedi mind trick. That's what we have to be like. Just laugh back. Well, ha ha ha, puny MSNBC Chris Jansen mind trick. I don't know why I thought of her, that little creature. She was the one that interviewed that kid that supposedly got shot in the head and then was released the same day. Named after Rome, Italy. Sure. Well, anyway, in dealing with this system, you have to be like that fat thing, Jabba the Hutt. And no mind tricks can work on you or ever will work on you again. That is, some people don't like the term mutant, but I love it. I don't think it's derogatory at all. It implies we are different, and I believe we are. By now, there are hundreds of examples of, quote, predictions of things to come by the control structure players that came to be or will only come to pass beyond the longevity of the author or the artist or the person in their speech or statement making the prediction. Will come to pass long when they're gone, dead and gone. It goes way beyond Albert Pike. These examples are now just all over the place. We have, for example, George Orwell's book, 1984, and Huxley's Brave New World, predicting our exact modern life with amazing accuracy if you take a combination or an amalgamation of both books. They didn't live to see that. You know, did they write all of that on their own, or were they simply mouthpieces of the system? You know, probably a little bit of both. H.G. Wells didn't live to see his long list of, quote, predictions come to fruition, like cell phones and fake space travel. Now, these were not people who got lucky or who could gaze into the future, calling upon their gypsy blood to do so. A gigantic script or playbook exists in this realm. Let me repeat that. A gigantic, potentially multi-generational script or playbook exists in this realm. One of the main goals of this control creature structure is to get everybody to read the script, to read the cue cards that they're handed. No doubt about that. Doing that degrades us. We talked about that in other sections. Now, being back to H.G. Wells and Orwell and the rest, I mean, being famous authors of their day, these men were coached, in my opinion, in some way coached to deliver truth and to be a medium by which the script is delivered. H.G. Wells' 1934 prediction stating World War II would start in 1940, as he wrote in a book before 1934 prediction about when World War II would start, 1940, was in an interview, but the interview was based on a book he put out a year or two before. So I'm always running around saying he predicted it 6 years in advance. He predicted the start of World War II 8 years or more in advance. But this was not some great prediction by the soothsayer H.G. Wells. The date was already established, in my opinion, on Mount Olympus, or in the back rooms or in their think tanks decades before they had basically picked the date, in my opinion. Every time I think that they're planning out, say, 20 years in advance or 30, upon close study, it looks more like 50. So the planning out is much more in advance than we can imagine, which is really, really creepy. Now, again, back to H.G. Wells, that fraud minion. As a famous author, as a famous figure of celebrity, he was used to deliver the plot of the reality script. Today, they don't need fat guys doing interviews on boats like I've shown you before. They just use movies to do it, and in many cases, television shows like The Lone Gunman. They're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center just a few months before 9/11? Oh, that's nothing. You conspiracy theorist assholes you just see too much conspiracy and everything. Yeah, it's just nothing. Now, the main point of all this is their incredible or inhuman patience. They begin constructing real and metaphorical or metaphysical walls, built these walls, that will only be finished long after they're dead. Again, these massive cathedrals took around 100 years to build, or just under. The person that started it was 40 or 50 years old. They're never going to see the end of it. So how nice of the person to start it. The altruistic creature minion who started building the massive cathedrals, they only cared about the next generation because only the next generation will fully be able to appreciate it. How nice of them. No, these humanoid creatures are very selfish. Okay, they're very selfish. Whether it be building something real or, their great work on society and the molding of that. Of the old ones, back to 9/11, of the old ones, only David Rockefeller, it seems, survived to see the towers come down that Tuesday morning. When did they know the towers would come down? They knew that when the towers would come down when they broke ground on the World Trade Center in 1968. Let me repeat that. That is old hat to many of the old guard, but some people would think that's shocking. We have different people at different levels here. I never say 100%, but it's awfully close. We know at this point, they knew the towers would come down. What day they would come down? The day they broke ground in 1968. And it was probably planned far longer in advance than that. What a coincidence. The Pentagon broke ground on September 11th, 1941. The script is laid out many, many decades in advance at minimum. And then, of course, you have the coincidence of 1968 to 2001, of course, the marker, the reality marker that keeps popping up in our face, the 33 years. I look at the movie X-Men Apocalypse, and when I see that creature called, it's hard to pronounce, the oldest mutant or the original mutant, En-Sabah-Nur, but they just call him Apocalypse. When I see him jumping into new bodies each century, and that's what he was trying to do, and if something went wrong, so he was imprisoned in a pyramid, but he's trying to jump into new bodies, jump forward in time. He makes himself immortal that way. When I see that, I see it as a possible truth drop. I do. And same thing when I watch Underworld, and they present the idea of vampires, Victor says, jumping through time, with one awake ruling the coven while two sleep. I see this as a potential truth drop. Now, truth drops are usually not going to be literal in most cases. Henry Kissinger probably is not planning to sleep underground with the blood drained out of him under Victor's coven or in a cave somewhere. I don't think so. But, again, I don't believe there's a real vampire either named Victor who has an affinity for Selena. Nor do I believe the creepy guy in the helmet in X-Men Apocalypse is real. But I do believe thousands of sources of these truth drops all give you a bit of truth. You have to gather the pieces and put them all together, and then the puzzle pieces will start to form an image. So, back to Dolores Cannon, I'll listen. No doubt I'll listen. She seems nice, but so did the Golden Witch and the Huntsman, so I can't let my guard down too much. There are thousands of people at this point, though, who say they remember past aspects of themselves, or clearly say they remember past lives. It's not a few people anymore. There's just too many to overlook. Those over about 40 years old remember that Shirley MacLaine story about her past lives and what she said many decades ago. What happened to her acting career after she talked about that. It was finished, gone, but, perhaps she said something that the controllers didn't like about past lives, and as a control system minion in Hollywood, they just squashed her. But there's other possibilities. Perhaps Shirley MacLaine dropped a bit of truth, and perhaps that was her exact role. She told the truth about past lives, but what happened? She came off looking like a loon to the masses, right? So, purposefully, the masses wouldn't believe it. That taught the masses to reject the idea of past lives, because status and prestige dictates that they can't be associated with a loon like Shirley MacLaine. I myself remember looking upon Shirley MacLaine as a complete nut many, many decades ago, because back then all I did was parrot the script. Some metaphysical cue card showed up into my hand, and it said, make sure you realize that Shirley MacLaine's a nut for what she's saying. So as I examined the Shirley MacLaine thing, at first I thought, well, after she started talking about this, they destroyed her career. But it's more likely that she said exactly what the truth dropped. She said exactly what the system wanted her to say, and then the system used that opportunity to belittle her people looked and saw that, everybody's calling Shirley MacLaine a nut, therefore I must never be interested in past lives. That is the message that hits the masses, whether they're conscious of it or not. Now, it's possible that our or my past life memory was wiped out upon birth. I'll always keep that on the table. I have to. There's just too much evidence where I have to keep that on the table. Too much in examining how the minions act. But whether however strongly you believe that or totally reject it, we know for sure that humanity's history has been wiped out. There's no doubt about that. As I've discussed before, we collectively, not really having any idea what our ancestors were doing just over about 3,000 years ago, is absurd. Absurd. Well, Matt, we have this and cuneiform and hieroglyphics. No, that's a joke. Cave paintings. I'm talking. We should know exactly what our species was doing, going back 10 to 15,000 years, in my opinion. It's been wiped out. And just people think we just climbed out of the monkey trees 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, and then just went from that to being the kings and queens of Egypt and pyramid building. I mean, come on. It's obviously been wiped out. We as long as we had a way to speak to each other, there was a way to communicate that in a permanent record via some sort of writing. Don't buy it. Now, I'm well aware many people in this community think, recent history has been wiped out, and we don't even know 400 or 500 years ago really what happened, and that is absolutely, of course, on the table. I'm not going to quite go there. That's not the purpose of this chapter. But we can all agree that beyond, Rome, for example, it's all been completely wiped out. I know it's been manipulated after that, but I'm saying we know nothing for the most part. Okay. So, but when you think about it, and if this doesn't seem absurd to you, let's put it this way. It's about 60 people back through time. 60 people. And we have no idea where we came from, 60 people, 60 generations. Do the math. It's a joke. 60 people. Back to the time of Jesus, is 30 people, roughly. 30 people. It's nothing. Now, those who have put themselves in control of this realm know something that most don't about the nature of this reality. Perhaps it's information they carried with them into this life, or if they didn't carry with them with full recollection, it's at the minimum insider information passed down through families, through certain secret societies, information that they have. What do you think the Vatican Library is? Go try to check a book out and see what happens to you. I remind you to again consider, what are all these secrets and secret societies for? Do people think they're just men playing dress up like Al Bundy's No Ma'am Club? I mean, the Vatican Library by itself, gives about 1 billion Catholics around the world just think it's completely fine that this library that we supposedly got a glimpse of in Da Vinci Code 2, Angels and Demons, and nobody's allowed in, and only the Pope can check out books. That's very friendly, isn't it? Very nice. All of the potentially past history, secrets of the world, treasures, art, and why would you want to share that with your 1 billion followers? You just keep it secret. Keep it secret for yourself. That's really, really kind and fair. Let's examine their patience one more time, because it's staggering and overall the topic is fascinating. If what we ponder here is what's really going on. If these controlling parasites were atheists in the classic sense, and they thought and really believed that we're all just going into dust on the day of our death, worm food, then that would be reflected in their actions. They'd be scurrying around trying to do everything now. Now, whatever they needed to accomplish would need to be done now. For atheists would just know that they're doomed to not see the results of any of their work. That they don't act like that, do they? They don't act like that at all. They clearly put things in motion that can only be fully accomplished over several lifetimes. No, they act like they'll be here to see it themselves, no matter how long it takes. In public, the controlling minions act like atheists. For example, the scientists. That's what they put forth. That's probably what they want you to believe. And then they also, in public, act like Satanists via the musicians and that aspect of how they present themselves. Overall, I think most of it is a big ruse to lay breadcrumbs for all of us in false directions. Who they really pay homage to is a mystery. It's more related to the star Sirius, in my opinion, than Satan. Let me repeat that. It's more related to Sirius than Satan. Some people call them one and the same, fine. But, if it's so obvious, the presentation of themselves, like Madonna at the Super Bowl, her obvious tribute to Baphomet, if it's so obvious, guess what? It's probably something else. That's a pretty smelly breadcrumb. Okay, and it's too simple. Do you really think Madonna was putting on a public tribute to Baphomet? I mean, is it that simple? Come on now. They would not be that obvious. In another example, when AC/DC returned to sing Highway to Hell with the Grammys or Oscar, I don't know what it was, but we've all seen the pictures on YouTube, on all these YouTube channels that recycle that picture over and over. Some sort of award show. The audience celebrates the return of AC/DC, and they put on the plastic devil horns, and Katy Perry puts on the plastic lit up devil horns, and then they give their hand signs. And most people stared at their TV, and then they said to their kids, "See, son, I told you. Father Joseph was right. Looky there. They worship the devil." Katy Perry, also during the Super Bowl, as the obvious whore of Babylon riding in on the beast. It's all too obvious, people. Do I have all the answers? No, but I'm pretty sure, I'm seeing through this. This ruse is too pathetic. There's 1,000 examples of this sort of stuff. So YouTube channels like Round Saturn's Eye can just latch onto it and interpret it that the controlling structure is 100% in love with the stereotypical devil. I'm not latching on or picking on Round Saturn's Eye. I watched the channel for many years ago. Very smart individual. I find him interesting, but I haven't seen it for a long time. I'm just saying, if you look for the little devil hints and drops, you're going to find a ton of stuff. It's to a degree meant to mislead. Okay, sorry. It's just not that simple. This reality is it's a triple agent. Okay, this conspiracy, the way the reality manifests itself, is a triple agent, like we've been talking about recently. It's never simple. It's three-dimensional chess at the least. It's probably more complicated than that. Now, as complicated as it is, it makes what we need to do for ourselves much more simple. But we're not talking about that now. The simple solution, what we need to ourselves, is not really the point right now here. We're studying the screen and the minions, like I've been doing a lot in this book, of course. But if you look up at whatever the minions are doing and you see an obvious game of checkers and an obvious checkers move or a jump, then that's the game they want you to think that they're playing. Something else is going on, likely, beyond our understanding or perception. They want us thinking they worship the stereotypical devil, and that's the purpose of such obvious public displays, mostly during the Super Bowl. Then they bank on an army of half-mutants making videos about it for the next 2.5 years. No, these controllers, the George Bush creatures, the cockroaches, are not the same as you and me. I mean, think about it. What does your inner knowing tell you? I think many of us would agree here. They're just not the same as you and me. Whether we're completely different per the definition, a textbook definition of alien, which doesn't mean little green men, it means alien, it means something different. Or they just have a few DNA differences, chromosome differences, whatever they are, they're not the same. I think, and many people think, they may be trapped here in this realm forever, for as long as this realm will exist. And there's no guarantee that that's forever. They, the controlling parasites, may float on purpose, this recycling trap stuff, this prison planet stuff. Alex Jones's website, his first one was called Prison Planet. It still exists. Just float it out there. So we all are fooled and come to think that we're in the same predicament that they are. Doesn't it seem like that's what they want us believing and manifesting? And perhaps if you believe you'll be recycled, you will actually manifest it on yourself. That's a concept that I have to hold on to as a possibility. Now, somebody commented, and I agree, it's possible we get exactly what we expect to get. now or upon our death or whatever. And that's why they've spent a lifetime implanting 100 shitty things that we now expect could happen to us upon death, like even hell itself. Perhaps we get or manifest it upon ourselves. And what do? How do they condition our minds, with all the negative? No matter what, we can get out and never come back if we so choose. I get the sense, I don't think they can get out. It may be like this, lifetime after lifetime of yachts and mansions and blowjobs and brandy and cognac and homes in the south of France. And if you think that sounds good, anybody listening to that, oh, that sounds good. Sounds good. You got a lot of work to do. Repeating this realm of materialism and disease, if you repeat it, it's a sentence, okay? It's not a big win in the cosmic sense. Now, I told one family member that a lot of people hold on to this idea that don't do things right, could be recycled, come back again. There are many religions that are proponents of this. There's a segment here that thinks we're actually trapped, and this is a recycling center or a prison planet where we come back. And the person actually got excited about it. They got excited about it. Now, not that they're an older person and not that their life was so great. Like people say to me, Matt, what kind of person lives such a great life where they would be excited about it? But it's more like, to this person, it was like the fantasy of reliving youth, like Al Bundy's high school football days and the wonders of youth and being a sports star. And I mean, really? Ooh. Then I said to this person, well, wait a second, why are you assuming it would be kind of the same life that you just lived? Who said anything about that? You might be living at the edge of the runway at either the Delhi or Bangladesh airport. And you know what kind of communities are at the end of a runway in these big cities? I've flown into Mexico City in the 90s, and it's basically people living in cardboard boxes, and I looked down and saw almost like mud huts. Like anytime you're in the trajectory of where the planes come in any big city, it is some of the worst neighborhoods because obviously no one wants to live under where the planes come in 50 feet above your head. But then it kind of threw him for a loop. Oh, yeah, I might, maybe if I do come back here, maybe I will be in an area of India where there's no running water and just there's a hole out back. So it didn't quite, he just figured he'd come right back and it was charmed life. And wow. Amazing. So again, but I'm presenting concepts that, we talk about all the time. You present almost any of the concepts in this book or any of the things we generally think about in this community. Say it to somebody on the street and they've never thought about this shit. None of it. So if this life is in any way a preparation for the next, for death, these people haven't prepared. It's like going into a major calculus exam in college or something, and they haven't even opened the book. At least we've been studying. Like I've said, it's like the movie Poltergeist. We collectively are Carol Ann, and the George Bush, Hillary Clinton, Dementor-like creatures are the beast thing in Poltergeist, in the closet, keeping Carol Ann close to itself. They need us. No doubt about it, they need us. People think they're just going to kill us off. Just kill us off. Oh, that would have happened a long time ago. What are they waiting for? No, they need us. And it's not just, they don't need us just to work in their Foxconn factories with the suicide jumper nets. They need us for our life force and our energy, just like the beast in the movie needed Carol Ann.